Alright, so this video was inspired by the Ananta trailer. The one from December of 2024. That's how long I was meaning to make this. But this is not an Ananta hype video, in case you were expecting one. I mean, the game got 17 million pre-registrations. They are doing fine without any additional hype. Really, what this is just me ranting about my very subjective opinion about one particular genre. Urban fantasy genre, because hey, it feels like we're getting a lot of those recently, and I think there's an old phenomenon in play. Allow me to start in a roundabout way with a bit of history. Back in the 2010s, we had a surge of something called WoW killers. World of Warcraft became such a huge thing in gaming that for a while it seemed like everyone was trying to make the next big MMO, promising to outshine WoW. And whole gaming communities, hundreds and thousands of people, drunk on the idea of the next best thing, migrated from game to game for years. I myself was part of one such gaming community at the time, crazed by all the hype, and I hopped like an idiot from Warhammer Online to Terra to Rift to Ion to Star Wars The Old Republic to Guild Wars 2 to ArcAge to WildStar, and I never even played WoW in the first place. Only years after that, I personally have finally stopped chasing WoW killers and have now happily settled in FF14, but remnants and promises from that era can be seen to this day. Well, the age of WoW killers is gone, but trend chasing is alive and well. We saw it with Souls-likes, we saw it with Battle Royales, now there's a similar idea going around in gacha games. I am of course talking about Genshin killers. With miHoYo releasing Genshin Impact, they seemingly pushed gachas to the next level of gamers' awareness. Now, they are the trendsetters, like the Blizzards of old. So, like in olden times, you can hear words like Genshin killer being thrown around, and for good reason. After Genshin, people are trying to make action RPG gacha games of comparable quality with varying success. We got Wuthering Waves, Tower of Fantasy, Punishing Grey Raven, Do It Night Abyss, Arknight's Anfield, all anime action RPG games. Some are direct attempts to capitalize on Genshin-like ideas, some are doing their own thing, but you cannot deny the general influence. But it's not just about a game genre. It seems to me that right now, when miHoYo gets a good idea, people want to emulate that, and that also can mean the setting and style. After Genshin Impact, miHoYo released Honkai Star Rail, and after that Zenless Zone Zero. Now, I have pretty much skipped Star Rail, but I did get into Zenless for a while, mostly because I like the setting. Urban environment with supernatural flair, all sorts of weird characters and neighbors and crazy stuff happening, and I don't think I'm the only one who got hyped for that type of thing. The game was revealed in 2022, and as expected, since then we already had a few more urban action RPG games announced and even released. There's Neverness to Everness, a supernatural urban action open-world RPG developed by Hota Studio under Perfect World publisher. Or Project Mugen, a supernatural urban action open-world RPG developed by Naked Rain, a studio under NetEase. That's not the only one such game from NetEase, by the way. There was a trailer for game Tianzi 76, which also looked like an open-world action RPG in a supernatural urban setting, featuring two siblings dealing with some supernatural phenomena. Now that sounds extremely familiar, though it seems that the game is now cancelled. If you move away from contemporary urban settings, there's also Silver Palace, a steampunk-looking game in a Victorian supernatural urban setting which I also can describe as Grand Theft horse-drawn carriage. I mean, just look at that horse drifting. And even miHoYo themselves have announced a new game, Varsapura, possibly taking inspiration from Control, adding open world to the idea to create a supernatural action RPG which also looks somewhat GTA-like. Speaking of GTA, Rockstar clearly saw the rise of urban setting popularity in gachas, and that made them finally announce GTA 6. Okay, I am of course joking about that last one, but urban ideas are definitely on the rise, and among them all, one game stood out for me. On December 5th, 2024, Project Mugen, rebranded as Ananta, received a new announcement trailer, immediately making this project the anime GTA game. Now, I have rewatched the trailer a lot, and each time I watched it, I got the feeling that yes, this is it. Okay, let me take a pause and remind you that this is still not an Ananta hype video. Am I personally hyped? To a reasonable degree, sure. Will I try it when it's out? Yes, high chance of that. Do I tell you that you must try the game and will love it? Absolutely not. Because again, this is not what I want to talk about. I will point out one important thing though. Ananta now looks quite different from early trailers of Project Mugen. It seems like at some point there was a shift in direction. That shift is what made me notice the game. The Project Mugen trailer presented a city that looked like it had a hidden supernatural side to it, with chaos being some sort of antagonistic force. Also there was a Titanic woman which reminded me of Snowbreak trailers. Release time Snowbreak, not whatever the hell it ended up being. The trailer itself was not bad, but also not super exciting. Somehow, the most standout thing for me was graffiti coming alive. That looked like a cool idea. And the rest of it felt somewhat generic. But when the game became Ananta, the contrast between the first and new trailers was huge. So, what exactly is that proverbial it in the newer trailer for me? After thinking about it for a while, I decided that what I saw there is exactly what I want from my urban fantasy. And that brings me to a really important disclaimer about the meaning of the term. According to Wikipedia, urban fantasy is basically a genre that places fantasy elements in contemporary urban setting. And that's immediately a problem for me, because when I think of urban fantasy, that's not specifically what I'm talking about. I do not know if there's even a proper term for it, but what I imagine is urban fantasy, while also taking meaning from the term power fantasy. Power fantasy, of course, is when you live out your dreams of being extremely powerful. So, when I say urban fantasy, what I mean is a dream of living in an extremely exciting and fantastical urban setting. I guess it might help to have some examples to illustrate a point. Neverwhere is a novel in which the main character suddenly gets involved in a fantastical and secret world existing under the streets of London. Likewise, Rivers of London is a novel, first in the series of the same name, in which the main character uncovers the secret magical side of London in a case involving personified rivers of the city, hence the name. Both books are good examples of urban fantasy setting as it is generally defined. Incidentally, both are set in London, which I guess is just good for that sort of thing, because as we all know, there's just no place like London. Likewise in movies, Hellboy is a good example of the same, especially the second movie, where at one point the heroes visit a Fey market hidden under the streets of the city. But if you want to get closer to what I mean, then it would be something like Bright. That movie shows the fantasy elements ingrained into everyday life, so there can be fairies infestation at home or random dude with Zweihander on the street, and everybody will just take it in stride. Still, it's not quite what I want, because the Bright setting is kinda run down and doesn't feel very exciting to live in. So, let me show you an example of the first time I ever felt extremely excited about the urban fantasy setting as I mean it. That happened during the peak times of Newgrounds, and the thing I want to show you there is CCC City. You know how YouTubers would tell you to like, subscribe and share their videos? Well, instead of that, I ask you to share this Newgrounds series to others. It's goddamn great. Made by animator Vini Veritas, it's a series about a city in a fictional universe, full of weird, flashy and random occurrences. There are gunfights, parkour races, mad scientists with giant robots, and it's pretty much the norm. You can be walking through the market buying apples, and the next thing a guy would fly past you, dragged by a giant kite, only to be later apprehended by a cute bounty hunter, and your thoughts would be, yeah, that's pretty much normal Tuesday. I will leave a link in the description, and I highly recommend you give series a watch. Another great example of my type of urban fantasy is from anime. Kekkai Sensen, Blood Blockade Battlefront. If you're not familiar, this one is set in New York City, where a portal to other dimension has opened, and nobody really got fazed by that, cause I guess that's New York for you, just as iconic as London. The main story is about a secret organization fighting against a hidden supernatural threat, but while that's happening, people, including the main hero, just live their lives. The main hero, being part of the secret organization, is part-timing as delivery guy, just to have some money, because as we all know, rent is not cheap. Especially if you also want to be able to afford games. And his normal life and job are not safe from the general randomness of the city. He gets abducted by an evil queen, gets caught up in a street rocket launcher shootout, is constantly attacked by a perverted guy who steals all his pizza, his coworker by the way, and again, that's just the norm for where he is. Even outside of work, simple activities he engages in, like spending a lunch break eating burgers with his friend, are outlandish and amazing, and yet perfectly mundane. I mean, just as a random example, I'm sure you also had that feeling when you're hungry and kinda want to find a place to eat, but you don't like the look of the first few places you find, and then you're not quite that hungry yet, and for sure you would be able to find something good eventually, right? If you just walk a bit more. And it all ends with you getting hungrier and hungrier with no salvation in sight, and then despairing completely, and just dragging yourself to a usual joint where you know what the food is like, and then it ends up being closed or out of your favorite burgers or something. That is a near universal experience of living in a big city. Perfectly mundane. So, back to games now. There's enough games that can be described as urban fantasy. Not many are urban fantasy as I mean it though. However, there's a relatively recent game where they also got it exactly right, and I'm talking about Cyberpunk 2077. I am one of those people who not only pre-ordered the game, but also played and finished it pretty much within the release window before most bugs were fixed. Fear me, if you dare. I had my share of NPC glitches, broken quests, weird textures, and other bugs ranging from amusing to annoying. Still, I enjoyed the game, because if there was one thing it did exactly right, it was the atmosphere. Night City is an amazing, exciting, dangerous and fantastic place, where each aspect of life is filled with both dreams and disappointments. You get out into the desert at night, you take a good look at the Night City skyline, and you know why people are trying to get in and will keep trying long after you're gone. And I think game creators understood the feeling I am describing well, because one of the Cyberpunk trailers is just showing all the cool stuff in the city. Mundane and amazing at the same time. This is not exactly a fantasy setting, but it is absolutely an urban fantasy for me. Another great example is a game I already mentioned here. It's GTA 6. And yes, that one is not out yet, and this is also not a GTA 6 hype video. But once again, you take a look at the trailer and you just know that they're going for the same feeling of excitement and amazement in what is just normal life within the game setting. From streets filled with expensive cars to an old lady ready to show you what's what, everything feels like a part of some cool story. I mean, would you like an alligator to walk into the store during your shift? Probably not. Would it be an exciting event spicing up your whole day? I would strongly say yes. And GTA 6 is not even set in a fantasy or sci-fi setting, it's just quote-unquote normal world with a lot of crime in it. But once again, for what it is a great example of urban fantasy as I mean it, and I do hope it will turn out this way when the game is actually out. And then there's Ananta. Yes, we have now come full circle. Their trailer is taking very heavy inspiration from the GTA 6 trailer, and you may have mixed feelings about that, but I think no one can deny they got the urban energy just right. And those specific trailers I mentioned, one of the things they all have in common, they don't even show the main character all that much. Voiceover from V in Cyberpunk trailer, a bit of Lucia's story at the start and end of GTA 6 trailer, a bit of the main character participating in crazy stuff in Ananta, as well as taking the subway. People who made these trailers all knew that in the moment, it might not be that important who you are, but it is important where you are and what is going on out there. Okay, let's get to the point. Why do I even think it's something important to rant about? Well, I live in the city. Chances are you also live in the city. We all know how cities work. There's comfort of familiarity there. That is the point of urban fantasy in the traditional sense. The author doesn't have to make up a fully new world, and you don't have to try and understand a whole new setting from scratch. And you even might feel more invested in it because it's really close to the setting you already live in. There's another way to make you feel familiarity in the story, and that is to make the protagonist, at least initially, similar to you by placing him into familiar circumstances. And by familiar circumstances I mean living a normal life, probably doing some boring office job. Right until some incident that would propel the protagonist away from the ordinary and into the fantastical. That is pretty normal escapism, and that also is a classic hero's journey, venturing from familiar into the unknown. And then there's urban fantasy settings the way I mean it. They also provide you with means to escape, but without actually having to escape. But in a good way. You're given an amazing, fantastical setting, the whole point of which is to show how it's not that far removed from what you already have. Sure, you might have a time-consuming job, maybe some family troubles, maybe even crippling depression. But in reality you're always just one step away from something nice, like maybe going out drinking with coworkers, having a picnic in the park or fun at the beach, or just simply walking down the street you haven't visited for a while and seeing what's new. Simple, mundane events that have a potential to make life suddenly exciting. And that's without even doing something really crazy like, I don't know, going to the gym, getting a new hobby, or even changing jobs. And that's why I really like this type of urban fantasy. Yes, it brings you to fantastical worlds that are exciting to live in, like any good fantasy should. But it also reminds you that your own world can be just as exciting. And also that whatever crazy stuff may happen in your life today or tomorrow, at the end of the day it's simple things that make you happy and keep us all united.
Let's get home early and game on!